Hi, I'm Jodi and I'm going to be presenting the tundra animals. So in the tundra, these are some animals that you would most likely find. We have the polar bear, the Arctic fox. Over here to this far corner we have another Arctic fox. There's grizzly bears and their cubs right in the center. We have a caribou right here. We have the musk ox and the snowy owl up there in the far corner. And the ermine is right there in kind of the middle top row, which is similar to a ferret that I'm sure some people may have as pets or may not. We also have down here, we have the harlequin duck, which I think are really unique looking. Down here, the musk ox, you notice they're all together in a big group. That's for protection and for keeping them all together and safe when other animals are coming to defend them. Here are some other animals that you may find in the tundra. So we have some birds, there's fish, and there's insects. Obviously there's many more organisms, but we'll talk about these to be a little more concerned. So we have Arctic loons, we have the snow geese, the snow buntings, and up here is the tundra swan, which normally you'd see a swan sitting around in the pond, but they do fly and they do migrate, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. We also have the fish, which I chose to talk about salmon since most of us know salmon is a huge industry in America and all over the world, and most of them come from the tundra. We also have the bees, and these are not just any type of bees, these are Arctic bumblebees. So they're very adapted to that environment, and this is what they look like. So is this biome important? Yes. The biome would not be the same without these animals. These animals have adapted to allow them to live in such cold climates that no other animals could survive. The entire food chain would be affected if any of these animals were gone. And what I mean is, if one animal was to be taken out of the food chain, another animal would starve. And if that animal starves and that population dies out, then it continues on down the chain. That chain will eventually reach other biomes, and when those other biomes are affected, it leads all the way to human consumption. We will all eventually be affected. So they do matter, definitely. What are some of these adaptations? We have animals that must breed in a short amount of time. The summers are very short in the tundra, so there's about 6 to 10 weeks of summertime, and that is the amount of time that they can go out, get food, breed, find their mates, and they must do that very quickly. Also, they have blubber. Lots of the animals have blubber, which is a fat layer underneath their skin that keeps all of their organs warm from all the cold temperatures so that they can survive. Also, we have migration. In certain times of the winter, there's not enough food because a lot of the organisms are either too cold or they're not around as much, and so they have to fly out somewhere else to look for food where there's warmer summers and more food available for them. They also have hibernation. Bears obviously hibernate, and other animals hibernate, and in hibernation they're able to go without food for a long period of time, and they're able to just sleep and save their energy for the summertime again. Also, they have small ears and small noses. We all know that surface area is a big factor in heat and heat dispersal, and they can't allow too much heat to be escaped from their bodies. They need to keep it in. So they have smaller ears and smaller nose and smaller almost everything, and that helps keep their bodies warm. Also, they have carnivorous teeth for eating animals because they don't have as many plants in the tundra organisms. So for the white fur, the reason that animals have white fur is because there is a thing called body heat recycling. And how this works is, if you know, the color black absorbs most all light rays. The color white reflects all light rays. So the animal's body heat is being reflected back onto the animal versus being reflected off into the air, which is what would happen if they were black. That is why you see a lot of darker animals in the south versus whiter animals in the north. We have reproduction. One salmon produces 2,000 to 4,500 eggs. That is a ton of eggs, and most of them go off and they end up implanting into the ground, and then they'll hatch later on. But many of them survive, so it's very an effective way to keep the population up. Okay, so now we're on to the coral reefs. We have fish and turtles and sharks and eels and crabs and shrimp and urchins and sponges, polyps, which we learned about in class, seahorses as well, dinoflagellates, and many, many more. So these are all of a majority of the interesting animals that are in the coral reefs. Corals are very symbiotic, which means that they're very mutualist. There's benefits for both parties. You know, for example, we have an algae, a zooanthele, lives inside the sacs of coral polyps. The algae gives off oxygen and other nutrients the coral polyps need to live. In return, the polyp gives the algae carbon dioxide and other substances the algae needs. So here's a picture of the algae right here, living inside the tissue of the polyps, which through respiration they're able to transfer those nutrients and feed off of each other, which is what symbiotic means. And some adaptations that we have for the corals are narrow bodies, camouflage. So what would the narrow bodies be for? Coral reefs are very large, and there's lots of holes and lots of little areas for them to hide into. If they're narrow, they can fit in between those little spaces and they can hide, or they can fit in there to get food, and there's plenty of other reasons. Also, we have camouflage, bright colors and patterns. Those help to protect them from bigger predators and any other thing that may be coming near them. Grouping, so you see lots of fish that go in big, huge swarms and groups, and that's also for protection, which we talked about in the last biome. We have wide range food sources, so there are many different food sources, whether they're algae on the rocks or whether they're little microorganisms or other tiny fish. It all depends. Each animal is adapted to be able to eat a certain type of food so that they can all survive and all eat, which goes along with symbiosis. So we also have locational sense. So this eel up here in the corner has very good locational sense. It knows where it is. It knows they don't see, but they can feel around. They have senses to know where they are and how to move around and how to survive. And also teeth, mouth, and mouth shape is another adaptation. And they have obviously sharper teeth, smaller mouths, so that they can kind of squeeze in and eat different organisms. There's also some fishes that have almost like a beak that they can kind of clean off the edges of the rocks, and they're able to get nutrients from the rocks. Also food types, which goes along with the food sources. There's herbivores, there's carnivores, there's planktonores, which actually is a phrase and a word, and that means they eat photoplankton, and the photoplankton are photosynthesized. They get their food from photosynthesis, and then these organisms are able to eat those plankton and gain some of the nutrients from those photoplankton. So those are some of the adaptations. I hope you enjoyed it. Sorry that I couldn't be there, and thank you.